All right, prior to starting the meeting, I just want to please note that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. Recordings will be made available on the town's YouTube channel. At this time, we will start our Committee of Adjustments meeting for December the 12th, 2023. And at this time, I will introduce the folks that are here. I'll start with our staff. To my far right at the end is the manager, Ken Melanson, Manager of Planning Services for the County of Lambton. Beside him is Randy Burke, our planner. Beside myself is Adam Klimsky, our CAO. Hold on, coming. Okay, and our planning technician Lisa Smekins is here as well, and I will introduce our committee. To my far right, Councillor Mike Vasey. Beside him, committee member Jennifer Turk. To my immediate left after Adam is Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen. And beside her is committee member Les Goldhawk, and I'm Bruce Moulton, and I'm the chair of this meeting. At this time, I would ask that anyone that has cell phones, please have them on vibrate or off. And as well, any members that have pecuniary interest, please note them at the time that it's appropriate. Committee, everyone had the opportunity to read over the minutes from our previous meeting. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none. I have a motion here, moved from Councillor Mike Vasey, seconded by Jennifer Turk, that the minutes of the regular committee meeting of adjustments held October the 17th, 2023 be approved as presented. All those in favor? That's carried. So we will move on to our minor variance application. So minor variance application number A-2523. Take notice that an application has been made by Zelinka Priarmo, I have a limited company, Laura Jameson, agent for Lauren Dietrich and Sarah Kerwin, with respect to the property known as Plan 2 Block 5 Lot 9 Concession Front, Town of Plympton-Wyoming, 3480 Queen Street. The subject property is zoned residential 5R5 and environmental protection Lakeshore EPL. The application is proposing a single detached dwelling located in the environmental protection Lakeshore zone. Where a single detached dwelling is permitted, the following variance has been requested. 1, a variance of approximately 35 square meters, 376.7 square feet, to permit the proposed gross floor area of the dwelling to be approximately 370 square meters, 3,982.6 square feet, notwithstanding the maximum gross floor area of 335 square meters, 3,605.9 square feet, as per section 30.3I of zoning bylaw 97 of 2003. At this time, I'll refer to our planner, Randy Burke, for her words.
Thank you. So yeah, as mentioned, the applicant is requesting a minor variance from one provision of the zoning bylaw to support a replacement residential dwelling. The lot currently contains a dwelling, and the applicant is proposing to demolish it, subject to, I guess, the variance. The replacement dwelling does require a variance to the maximum gross floor area, so they are seeking relief from that provision. The variance was analyzed in relation to provincial legislation, including the provincial policy statement and the County of Lambton official plan. The proposed replacement dwelling will meet the current land use patterns in the area, as well as it is overall in compliance with both documents. The variance also went through the 4 tests of a minor variance, which are to be considered for all variance applications, starting with, is the requested variance minor? Although there's no definition of what constitutes as minor, it is a case-by-case situation. The proposed replacement dwelling is intended to be more consistent with the neighborhood characteristics of Main Street. A site visit was done, as well as there are two neighbor correspondence provided that do support the application as well in terms of neighborhood consistency. It can also be noted that the lot is of sufficient size to accommodate a dwelling of this size, and that no adverse impacts are intended. So therefore, the variance can be deemed minor. Test 2 is the general intent and purpose of the official plan maintained. As mentioned, the plans are designated service hamlet area and lakeshore in the town official plan. The dwelling is located wholly within the lakeshore designation and does permit a single detached dwelling. Within the lakeshore designation, it's essential that consultation with the Conservation Authority is done. So there are correspondence from the Conservation Authority stating that there are no concerns. And they do actually talk about how it is set back farther from the lake as what the current dwelling is now. So therefore, the general intent of the official plan is maintained. The third test is the general intent of the zoning bylaw maintained. It is zoned R5 and EPL. The structure is located in the EPL zone. The maximum gross floor area provision in the EPL is to ensure that the residential structures are a suitable size and located on lots that can support them of this size. And as mentioned before, this lot can facilitate a dwelling of the size. It still does meet all the required setbacks with the maximum gross floor area. So therefore, the general intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. And finally, test 4 is the development appropriate and desirable for the subject lands. The subject property is zoned and regulated for the proposed use. And based on the report and what's provided today, the development is appropriate and desirable. For those reasons, planning staff recommend that the application be approved with the conditions outlined.
Great, thank you very much. Lauren and Sarah, you've heard her report from Randy, and I see that Laura is also online. Is there anything that any of you would like to add to the report?
Not specifically. When we did develop the plans, they were developed taking into consideration the bylaw and the neighborhood in general. So we did try to make an effort to, minimize the size, minimize the impact, that kind of thing. We have received St. Clair Region Conservation Authority approval as well. So that I think was part of the package there as well. So Laura is online. So if anybody has any questions, we did retain Laura as a planner to help us through the whole process here. So she's intimately involved in it as well and can answer any.
Great, thank you very much. And Lisa, were there any other correspondence other than what we received from the St. Clair Conservation Authority, or any other correspondence that the committee didn't get it prior to?
No, all the correspondence received was provided to the committee, so it was just what was done by the agents that comment, as well as the 2 neighbor letters that were included in the staff report.
And committees had an opportunity to read those. At this time, I will open for committee questions, and I'll start with my far left. Mr. Les Goldhawk, you can go ahead.
Actually, on this one here, I don't have any questions. I thought that Randy did a good job with the and so forth. And site visit showed that like it would handle it without any issues at all. And it was in with the neighborhood.
Deputy Mayor McEwen.
I do have a comment. It's sort of nice to have the Conservation Authority's opinion ahead of time instead of on condition they get Conservation Authority approval. So that certainly helps the issue in this part. Why was the application not filled in? It's blank, except for a signature.
I know the application that I had received was filled. I'm not sure if it was filling, but I did see a filled in application for sure.
I wonder if it was just a matter of the original application was filled in but not signed, and then
He's got his filled in, mine's totally blank. You don't believe me? He's coming over to look my shoulder because he doesn't believe.
I didn't say I didn't believe you. I just wanted to see it for myself.
Okay, so well, I'll withdraw the question. You guys, see.
Mine's filled in as well.
Okay, okay, I don't have any further questions at this moment. Thank you.
Jennifer,
I don't have any.
Councillor Bates.
One question, can the town be held liable anytime in the future if there's damage to this house by us allowing the bigger house in an EP zone?
Ask our planners. We've had this before, Councillor Vasey, and I don't believe that we would be, it's their variance, which will put them, I mean, they're building where they're building, not having to do with us. And once again, the St. Clair Conservation Authority also approved of where they're gonna build. But unless our planner has anything else to,
Sorry, I don't have an answer, your work, Mr. Chair. And
Well, I think they can't combine.
Yeah,
I don't build it there.
no, we've done this before. I don't think that would have been an issue in the past.
And the other I've just got that we always rely on the Conservation Authority opinion on anything along the lake. Most of the overage is made up with the back porch, the covered porches and stuff. I have no issue with this, so I think it'll fit in there and look good.
And for my comments, more comments, I live not too far away, so I know the neighborhood quite well, and I think it'll be a beautiful house down there, and I'm looking forward to seeing it being built. So at this time, I actually have a motion, I've got a motion here from by Les Goldhawk, seconded by Ned McEwen. The report by Randy, November the 28th, 2023, be received, and that application A-2523 be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, a certified lot grading plan be submitted to the town of Plympton-Wyoming and approved by the town prior to the permit issuance. Number 2, that the St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority permit required at owner's sole expense prior to any development taking place. Number 3, final grading plan certificate submitted to the town of Plympton-Wyoming upon final completion and subject to the town's final approval. Number 4, demolition permit required, an applicant to pay for the demolition permit and comply with all requirements and prescribed by the Ontario Building Code and to the satisfaction of the County of Lambton Building Services Department. Number 5, the building permit required, applicant to apply for a building permit and comply with all requirements and prescribed by the Ontario Building Code and to the satisfaction of the County of Lambton Building Services Department. Number 6, ensure eaves troughs, downspouts and grading is always maintained accordingly and within own property boundaries, no exceptions. Number 7, ensure the property is generally maintained and drained during the construction process and that drainage waters are not diverted to neighboring properties and that weeds and grass are always maintained within 20 centimeters, 8 inches or less. And number 8, ensure the setback is not less than 3 meters where the top of the footing of the building or structure is 30 centimeters or more below the invert of the service, or 6 meters where the elevation of the footing is located otherwise. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. There's a 20-day appeal period. And after that, you can contact Lisa, or during that, you can contact Lisa and she'll give you any information that you need to get you on your way. So very good.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to see your application on mine? Because I wasn't.
We saw it online.
Thank you.
Thanks. One more minute before we go to the next application. All right, that was a fast minute, but my clock says 5:30, so we'll start our second application. We have a severance application number B-1123. Take notice that an application has been made by 1272164 Ontario Incorporated in care of Carl Congus, agent for Mary Helen Bocioletti. Bocioletti, Carl, is that close?
Haven't better, so.
Okay. With respect to the property known as Plan 25M23 Lot 16, Town of Plympton-Wyoming, 6854 Creekside Drive. The applicant is requesting permission to create an easement of 2.5 meters along the western property line. This will be approximately 212 square meters, 2,279 square feet from the residential lands of the above noted property in favor of the abutting lot to the north, known municipally, excuse me, as 0 Fleming Road, roll number 3835-340-020-62111-0000. The lands are zoned residential 5 and hazard area by the town of Plympton, Wyoming zoning bylaw. This application is necessary to provide services to the abutting lot to the north. At this time, I will refer to our planner, Randy Burke, for her report.
So through your chair, the applicant is submitted a consent application seeking the easement to facilitate the use of existing utility infrastructure to provide services to the abutting property. The subject property, as mentioned, currently has an existing temporary easement for the utilities, which would become permanent through the consent application process. The application was analyzed through the planning legislation, including the provincial policy statement, county official plan, town of Plympton-Wyoming official plan, and the zoning bylaw as in the report. The report overall highlights that the proposed easement is consistent with all legislation and is permitted for legal and technical reasons in the provincial policy statement. No new lot is being created from this, and the zoning bylaw provisions will be maintained for the property of Creekside Drive, ultimately to facilitate future development to an existing vacant lot. Overall, the report does recommend approval with the conditions on the report.
Great. Anything to add, Carl?
Services constructed when we put in the services for Creekside Drive. Didn't register those easements that we should have done, but it was an oversight. We have cambered the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. This is only providing for the sanitary sewer. They look intact. They should have been flushed before we cambered them. We brought in a video of the camera, so if we have to camera it again by flushing it, we can, but everything looks intact.
Okay.
We spoke with Adam Zabansky at the time when he was in engineering department, and just to make sure that we could service that sanitary lateral if we had to dig it up without disrupting anything else. And through the engineering, it's a shallow service, so we can service it if we had to dig it up.
Anything to add to that, Adam, at all, or just or any clarification on that?
No, Mr. Congus has been working with the Public Works Department for a few months now on this topic. And he has provided an engineer's letter confirming the depth and the ability of Mr. Congus to maintain the sanitary lateral within the easement and not encroach upon the adjacent property or damage the adjacent home. Additionally, he's agreeable to the conditions. However, under condition 4, it notes the water and storm services temporary easement be abandoned. It probably could be amended to be abandoned to the satisfaction of the town to make it more clear on what abandonment will detail. Other than that, I have no additional comments at this time.
All right. Lisa, any correspondence other than, I don't believe we actually got any correspondence.
No, there was no correspondence received in relation to this application.
Okay, thank you. This time I'll open it up to our committee for questions, and I'll start opposite the last time. I'll start with Councillor Mike Vasey.
All right, excuse me. What is the regular easement size? Because it seems awfully small to me when I went out and walked it, that any work could ever be done in there.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Typically for a shallow, small diameter pipe. Your minimum easement size that we would look for would be about 3 meters or 10 feet. So yes, this is typically narrower than we would allow on its own. But given the engineers confirmed that the maintenance can be done, we did not object to it at the time.
We ran into a situation where the pump, the house. and all that, it doesn't run into that.
No, because this pipe is much smaller diameter and it's much shallower than the pipe that we ran into this situation about 2 years ago. So the adverse effects on the adjacent house are minimal because of that.
And what exposure does the town itself have to this? If we grant this,
So the private property owner has granted the easement to Mr. Kungus at this time. At this time, it's temporary, so the town itself, or the Committee of Adjustment more accurately, is only making that easement permanent. The easement agreement would put any responsibility for maintenance of that lateral on the Mr. Kungus or the future property owner. And any failure to do so, which results in damage to the property which granted the easement, would be taken care of through private law and the easement agreement itself.
not us.
Correct.
Thank you. And then you mentioned that no new lot would be created. But that's basically what this is doing, is creating the lot.
What did you say, Mike? That I didn't hear you?
Ms. Burke said that it's not creating a new lot, but in essence, it is creating a new lot, because without it, it's not a building.
Through your worship, just to, through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, it's not a new residential lot. So provincial policy statement limits the ability to create residential lots only under certain circumstances. In this case, we can take the approach of legal and technical reasons because it's not creating a residential lot. It's creating a severance for the purpose of an easement. Also important to recognize that utilities under provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and your official plan, as well as zoning bylaw, are encouraged to be located anywhere. And in your zoning bylaw, you have a section called uses allowed in all zones. So utilities, which is a broad definition of not just utilities for the purposes of private infrastructure, but also for public infrastructure, are allowed in all zones.
That's it.
Think of.
Jennifer,
I don't have anything.
Deputy Mayor McEwen.
I do have a couple of questions. So we're creating an easement, which we forgot to register. I forget to register. So we're creating an easement for services to go to a property that has no house on it yet. So your plan obviously is to put a house on that property,
Sometime, yes.
but you will have to probably get a variance to put that house on that property. No, okay, if that's the case, but I thought it would be too much in hazard zone for you to put a house on that property.
So there's the high ground and there's the low ground. The low ground is designated as hazard. I don't know if the upper, you can make a comment on that.
Through your chair, we have been working with Mr. Congus to go over what potentially could be done with the property in terms of its location and the hazard. Planning staff are going to meet with the Conservation Authority to just confirm the top of banks for the property, as there is kind of, as you mentioned, a higher and a lower, so we just want to confirm through them kind of what their restrictions would be to ensure if a minor variance would be required from any of our policies. Just more direction is required based on just based on the hazard plans, and we want to make sure we have all information from
I
all consultations.
feels like we're doing the cart before the horse or something like that, or. I guess if you want an easement there and I know if you can build later, that's entirely.
On the building lot and on the building envelope. So we had Rolder and Associates do a stable slope analysis and they identified two slopes. One slope is at the top of bank for the creek. And the other top of bank is the high ground where we believe we have a building envelope. So zoning bylaw requires a 15-meter setback from top of bank for a water course, which is the creek. We're quite a ways away from that on the bank is higher elevation, so
You're pretty sure you won't need a variance
to
to build a house.
believe so, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Just got a question from Jennifer.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but looking at St. Clair Conservation's map, you will be within the regulated area, so you will need a permit from them anyways. So when the building plans come in, you're gonna have to get permission from them with a permit before you'll even be able to build.
We have already, Melissa Dicely came out with one of her planners and her engineer, who walked both sides of the property, and at that time, I didn't think there was an issue. I thought it was a 6-meter setback from the bank, that's the higher bank. So, but we're gonna get clarification.
Is that it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Les?
Yeah, I do have one. The written request is for 2.5 meters along the western property line. Correct? Diagram shows pie shape at the north end of it. That extends 8.3 meters.
What is on the written request is what's through the application. That's what planning staff goes through, so. Whatever is written on the application should be written on the report.
So the services that go under that piece that is pie shaped. What happens to that services?
We follow the lot lines up to a certain point, and we put 45 on them to bring them. So they're more functional for building a house.
So you're actually gonna be, with this request. You're asking for 2.5 meters along the western lot line. But at the north end of it,
Per diagram up there, yes.
that isn't what it says in the written request. My concern is without seeing a picture of where the, I would consider it pool shed. I don't know how close that is to where those services run, and I don't want to create a problem for the property owner after the fact if.
So when that pool shed was built, we already had a temporary easement in place, so they've respected that. So that temporary easement showed where all the services are, and we have enough space where the services run along that 2.5 meter easement and at the back of the property to not disrupt anything if we had to dig it up. There's a couple other methods of repairing pipe under the ground without having to dig them up. You can sleeve it, but maybe can explain that. I don't believe we'd ever have to dig it up unless there's, anyways, I'll hand that off to Adam.
Through Jeff, I mean, yes, there's trenchless technologies available where you could, from the basement of the future home, push a fiber sleeve through using high pressure air and or hot water. And what it does is it cures it afterwards and provides a new liner for the pipe.
So the only question that I would have then is the request going to match the drawing? Or is the?
Sorry, Lisa, anything to add to that? Seems like this has got a
So I will note for the notice, I was the one who drafted it. The area that's listed does accommodate that triangular section at the back. I clearly did not word it well, but this is the actual request that was given, and the request does, and gives specific dimensions. It says plan 2 on that registered plan, which is the drawing. So this is the request that was submitted by Mr. Tongas. And then the area on the notice does include that triangular section. The description, that was something that was creating the description for it. The area provided is the correct area, including that triangular section. Of that north end.
Does that need to be adjusted or no?
Through the chair, I'd just say that we're only as good as the information that's submitted by the applicant.
Which was accompanied by a drawing. The description, it's registered up in the registry on.
It should be clear in the decision.
So listening to my committee, I don't know if I have it clear in the decision exactly.
Through. And
Yep. No,
through your chair, if the notice is, encompassing the entire, the area being proposed, it's my understanding that my recommendation would include that. I don't have a specific area in my recommendation. It would be what is asked for through the notice. So that's my understanding of it, that is,
Correct.
if that's the correct area, then we have the correct recommendation.
So through you, Mr. Chair, condition number 1 requires that the applicant provide a survey that has to meet. That has to be acceptable to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, which is what then verifies. That the drawing and materials that have been submitted match in order for this to be registered at registry.
would you feel comfortable with that?
Because the only way that the Secretary Treasurer typically would be able to, as I understand it, stamp the deed is to verify that the drawing in that survey matches what was approved by committee. And it's been my general direction to staff that when we're doing notices to avoid any possibility of misunderstanding, we try to make the notices as general as possible to encompass as much potential outcome as possible. So I'm not, the notice, in my opinion, is fine. I think if you want to change any condition, I would just clarify. Copy of the deed and the survey be submitted in form suitable for registration and matching the drawing and information submitted for this application. I think that should be enough belts and braces to address Mr. Gold.
Either that or we refer to part 2 and plan such and such. You know,
I think if we put matching drawing and information provided.
Good Chair.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
So your staff report, the first attachment is the drawing clearly showing part 2. You notice the attachment is part 2. So although the language in the staff report and the notice reference 2.5 meter strip along the western portion of the property line, the attached drawings clearly show imply at the end. So I don't think there is any major conflict or concern in this regard, provided that Mr. Kungus meets the conditions and provides the adequate survey to confirm the area.
Councilor Vaizey, you had a question?
Well, I was just. The easement agreement. Is the one that needs to be more accurate than the 2.5 meters, because. Like I say, it clearly could be going right. Under his building and around his pool, and. It's gonna be really close to the pool.
It's actually, the building is between the pool and the surface, so it's further away from the pool than it is the building.
Is it? Okay. That just as long as. The owner's aware of it, that's my biggest. If that matches and.
The only thing I know, Mr. Chairman, is just so that we don't lose this, because we've already made one change to condition 1.
I have the other change that.
The Bansky one.
I have that as well, yeah, and so. To the committee, I am going to, and I have to refer back to my mover and seconder, so Jennifer, you
That's
moved
fine.
it and Mike, you seconded it. What I've added to number one, to the first is and matching. Drawing and information provided by the applicant after the suitable for registration and. As what was mentioned by our CAO on number 4, water and storm service in temporary easement be abandoned. Semicolon to the satisfaction of the town. Is that okay with my mover and seconder? Lisa, did you get that? I have it written here. For,
I have that, I was typing while you were speaking.
okay, at this time I'll call the question. I have a mover Jennifer Turk, seconded by Mike Basie. That the report by Randy Burke dated November 28th, 2023 be received and the application B-1123 be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, a copy of the deed and survey must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in a form suitable for registration and matching the drawings and information provided by the applicant. Number 2, additional severance fees as required by the town have been paid before the documents will be endorsed. Number 3, sanitary letter get CCTV inspected to ensure acceptability. Number 4, water and storm service in temporary easement be abandoned. Semicolon to satisfaction of the town. And number 5, the conditions must be met and the survey and deed be presented within 2 years from the date of the decision or the consent will lapse. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Mr. Congus, as you know, there's a 20-day appeal period. And you'll be in contact with Lisa and our planning committee for any questions or further information. For our committee, we'll get that typed up and maybe sign the mover and seconder on that. If that's okay. All right, that's it for our applications today. We will move on to our any business arising from previous meetings. Lisa, do we have any?
Forget to get that registered.
Could you just sign the sign-in sheet? No, there's no business arising.
Okay. Any new business?
I do have something I have to bring down. A couple of meetings ago, we mentioned how our notices are or our motions are done differently than council and other committees because we bring forth a positive motion, a negative motion, a motion to defeat in specific language. So then we're approving a negative or approving a deferral. So we looked into it to see if there's any terms of reference requiring that we bring it forth as a negative. And there is not. So I am proposing that in the future, maybe we should change that and do it more like council and the other committees do, where the motion is always brought forth in the positive. And if you choose to defeat it, then that would be what you are voting on the positive motion. So you are voting to defeat the motion rather than voting on a negative motion.
So before I start, before Nettie asks a question, as a chair, for myself, in order to get it on the floor, I need to have a motion. If I bring a negative motion to the floor and it gets defeated, a negative motion gets defeated, then what do I work from? Then I have to move to a positive motion in order to get the proper documentation correct. So on my part, I mean, once again, you're bringing a motion to the floor. If it gets defeated, then it gets defeated. So for myself, I was always in a quandary whether or not what motion to bring forth. If I feel from the committee that it's not going to go a possible way and I bring a negative motion, but then the committee decides, well, no, I think we're okay with this, and then it gets defeated. If I get a negative motion defeated, then I really have to move back to a positive motion in order to be able to move that motion forward. So that's for me. So Nettie, go ahead if you have a.
I do have a question. First of all, you said that we don't have to follow that positive motion.
So we looked to see if there was terms of reference for the committee of adjustment stating that we had to bring forth a negative, and there is nothing specifying that.
So we can bring forward a negative motion. No
Um,
problem. I mean, if we bring forth a positive motion and then we turn it down and we don't know what we're talking about. We bring forth a negative motion and it's very clear that it's negative, you know? So why do we mess around with positive and then go turn around and it'd be negative and
Well, the issue I have is that once again, when the motions are put out and my committee doesn't want to sign a motion, whether it's negative or it's positive, then to me that puts, if I don't have a motion to push forward, I don't have a motion to push forward.
right?
So people don't want to sign. So I get, if I have a committee that maybe is 2-2, I may, you know, it's gonna be me that's going to make the decision on the final decision.
Right.
So which motion do I move forward? If I move a positive motion forward, then I have the ability to say no, or I have ability to move forward. If I have a negative motion to decide on, then if I'm making the motion or breaking the tie, and we accept a negative motion, then where do I go from there? Right? I mean, I don't have the document, right? So if it says motion defeated, then basically the negative motion defeated, I have to go back to the positive motion anyway to get it on the floor. Or to get it back on the floor. Les?
Sorry, you
Is
lost.
there any issue or push to change
No,
what we're doing right now? Like, other than getting the signatures, I hear what you're saying there. I mean, that hasn't stopped anything yet, has it?
Well, the issue we've had in previous meetings is that I'm questioning what motion I'm going to bring forward, whether it's a positive motion or a negative motion. And so to help the chair, if I'm bringing, I truly, I mean, it depends on what I get signed. But I always worry if I bring the negative motion and it gets defeated, then where do I go from there? Go ahead, if you have anything to add, Jennifer, go ahead.
So we should be looking at what the procedural bylaw is, because even though the Committee of Adjustment has terms of reference, there's a procedural bylaw and how motions are presented and brought forth. And on the second note to that, the motions that are sitting before us are based off of a recommended planning report that come from our planners. So whether it's positive or negative, that's just the conditions that they've presented in the motion. So I understand what you're saying, but maybe we need to look at it from the procedural bylaw for how we bring forward motions or present motions if we're going to defeat or amend or create a new motion.
Yeah, and I'm fine with doing whatever the committee would like, as long as we're following whatever rules we need to follow. Lisa?
So I did consult the clerk with this. All of the other committees and council do everything in the positive. That is the procedure that's followed by every other sitting board that the town has. She did say that before we just switch things, she did want us to have this conversation and make sure this committee was comfortable with that. Some of the concerns of bringing forward a negative motion, though, are one, the motion is really supposed to be to bring the topic to discussion. So how we do it is we discuss the topic and then we decide which motion after that, based on how the discussion is going. So if Bruce feels like the discussion is kind of leaning in oh, we should accept this, he'll pick up the positive motion, but if everyone's talking is in a way that we should deny it, he'll pick up the negative motion. So that kind of goes against the purpose of the motion being what's bringing the item to the table. And it also can cause some ambiguity, as Bruce was mentioned, because if you defeat a negative motion versus a positive motion, if you accept it, it goes through. If you defeat it, it was turned down, and it's very clear, there is no confusion in that case. So that's why this discussion was brought forth at this time.
You're always bringing forward the positive motion. If the committee does not support it, you simply defeat it. If the committee does not support the motion as is and wishes for amendments can be made on the discretion of the mover and seconder. And if you wish to defer for further information, you can do so. So all those functions are embedded in that one motion, whereas the committee currently uses 3 motions for those purposes.
Any other discussion? Les?
Isn't it? Well, I think it's been talked about, but isn't it based on the recommendation or either to accept from the planner. Like, so it automatically says it's a not a positive or a negative.
Right, but what the recommendations from the planner are recommendations. Once again, we have to get it on the floor. And right, we still have to get it, whether it's we have to get it on the floor in order to be able to vote on it.
The way we do that at council is if staff is recommending that a motion be turned down, we would still present the motion in the positive, but with very clear language in the staff report is that staff does not recommend supporting this motion. It suggests that council defeats it.
Eddie?
No, Ken.
Oh,
Ken's
oh,
raised
sorry,
his hand.
Ken, go ahead.
Under the Planning Act, the committee has to make a decision. And it has to give reasons for its decision. You also have to hold a public meeting for any item that you have. So your public meeting is your opportunity to have a discussion before you are weighing into a positive or negative outcome. Because that's where the item is introduced, the planner provides an overview of the report, the public has an opportunity to engage. Committee has the opportunity to engage and ask questions, and then you come to you have a point where you say, okay, the public component is done. Now, what is the feeling of committee? What's the debate? Where are we going? What are we gonna do? Regardless, your decisions have to have an outcome and they have to have a reason. When you're supporting the staff, the reasons are simple. It's outlined in the report. It's where you get into the opposite. And even a recommendation of no can be seen as a positive outcome because that's a positive outcome. We're not recommending you approve anything. We are recommending you not approve it for X, Y, Z reasons. It's where you get into this opposite approach. Because then you've got to start figuring out what are your reasons? How does it, depending on the outcome, how does it meet planning policy or how does it not meet planning policy, right? I don't know if that's helpful or muddies the water, but
So I'm looking for direction from our committee, which way you would like to go. We've had a from Lisa has mentioned, obviously, the way that they would like to go. Is the committee in approval want to do that or no?
I wasn't doing anything. I was clearing my throat.
So I don't know if we formally need to vote on this or I don't really have a motion or anything. So I'm looking for consensus from what the committee.
Would the motion be in the positive or the negative?
would be positive and then we can.
Well, like I say, we have it at council all the time. And like I say, we're used to the positive, but before you vote, make it clear that yes, by voting no to this, you're saying.
Right, and I think the issue that we've had in the Committee of Adjustments is anyone signing a positive motion. Feeling that they feel that they have to then vote for the motion, but just because that they're putting their name on it. I mean, I think we're making it clear that if you sign, we're just signing it to get it on the floor. So that we can have a discussion and actually, or vote for or against. So, and I think that's where, I think that we, whichever the committee would like to do, if we want to go status quo, or do we want to have some opportunity to think about it and come up with some other options, and we could talk about it on our next Committee of Adjustments, if that's what the committee would like, or willing to listen.
Well, I prefer status quo. So
Myself too.
I don't care.
Fine.
So then the chairman makes the decision, which
I don't
way
care
we
either
go.
way. If it bothers me,
And I said I was fine with the status quo.
Ken?
so I just wanted to give committee an example of how you can say a negative, you take a negative motion and make it a positive, just so that you understand. But I want to back up and say, I don't think you actually need to make the motion to put the debate on the floor, because the whole point of the committee having its public meeting and engaging with the public and the applicants is that you are supposed to, under the act, have a debate and discussion.
Right. When I meant by debate on the floor is not what I really meant. I have to put the motion on the
Yeah.
floor.
So,
So I can't put the motion and I can't proceed with the motion if I don't have a mover and a seconder. So,
so an example would be of a negative, an obvious negative motion is the council not approve the proposal of blah, blah, blah. The way to write that in a positive is that council deny, because that's a positive outcome. You're making an action, right? That's the whole idea along governance of the positive. Is it, an outcome occurs, you're taking an action.
so I have a simple question then, because our negative motions would be that council deny this motion. With no other stuff afterwards. So basically, if the council then decides that they're going to defeat that denial. Where do I go? I don't have any other information on that sheet that says must follow this, must follow that, must follow that. I then have to go to the positive motion. And basically bring forth the other motion. Right, because the paperwork I would have for a negative motion would be the council does not approve this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you would not have a recommendation like that from us. What would happen is we would, the committee deny application, whatever, for the following reasons, because you have to give reasons, right? So we're not gonna provide you with a situation where we're saying deny the application without them.
No, right, I understand that.
So if you stay as your status quo, and let's say for whatever reason, the committee decides to push forward with a motion that denies an application for reasons A through C. Through the discussion, after that motion hits the floor, the committee decides that they actually think they can support it. They would defeat that motion to deny. And then they would bring back the motion of support with whatever reasons the planners gave for support, plus the reasons that the committee felt they could support whatever into it. And then they could, two motioners could bring that to the floor, and then you could vote on that.
Okay.
But once it's denied, you can vote on deferral because you denied it already. So you're essentially bringing back a new motion to approve it. Actually, theoretically, since you have multiple motions in this circumstance, you could bring to ask for the application to be amended and brought back for further consideration. So you're not deferring that motion as it sits, you're asking for amendments to the application to bring it back. So there is options.
Great.
And unless that goes against what's in our procurement bylaw, what you're doing right now may not, or sorry, procedural bylaw may not necessarily be the norm for what the rest of the committees are doing. That it's working for this committee and you're happy with it, then don't necessarily change it. If you don't feel it's working for you, then we can work with you and make adjustments.
So committee,
Status quo.
status quo, okay, Lisa, status quo. Any other new business? I'm gonna go to any of our planning committee or planners have any new business? Councillor Vaizey, any new business?
Nothing. For me, thanks.
Jennifer?
I do. This was brought to my attention on my way here, so I couldn't do anything about it prior. I had a resident bring to my attention that the agenda on our website does not show the application, but yet the agenda that was emailed to us does show the application.
I will comment to that. The application is not a public document.
You did just have it on the screen. So with it being on the screen, then it's becoming part of the public document because you're recording it on YouTube.
Adam?
I confirmed during the video that the screen was not being shared on YouTube, although we're discussing it. But you're right, if the camera is looking at this screen, then it becomes a public document. So we should, if it's not a public document, we should probably avoid putting it up on the screen during an open meeting.
Okay. Anything else, Jennifer? Eddie?
No, nothing.
Les? Adam?
Bruce, you mentioned, or Mr. Chair, you mentioned the Director of Public Works. So staffing complement for this committee historically had been the CAO and planning staff. Through last year, I started to attend as Director of Public Works due to some more complicated applications, and then I filled in as the CAO until I became CAO in September. Does the committee see the benefit of having the Director of Public Works join? Or are you happy with the current complement of staff attending the meetings? And you grew accustomed to it, and that's.
Yeah, I like having, you know, obviously there's questions, and if it's anything that can stop a deferral of our, you know, just by questioning works and whatnot, I think it helps as far as committee, but it's up to do.
So
You're
I-
all the information.
More torn that we need Mr. De Silva more than we need the CAO.
Right, and that's basically, I didn't, the CAO, basically, I was.
But
When Adam was the Public Works
Yeah.
guy, I liked having the Public Works person here.
that's what I'm saying.
One or the other.
Yeah.
You don't.
I don't necessarily, we've never,
You
yeah,
need both.
I'm okay with that. I don't need to meeting.
no, I agree. I don't believe that we need both, but I'd like to have, especially Public Works, or whomever. I mean, you, right now, you know most of the Public Works stuff, but there might be a time where.
Where I've moved away from it and
Moved
may
away
not
from
have the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
Why don't we play it by application? If the applications are very planning heavy and have little to no public involvement. They will be attending. If the applications are Public Works heavy, maybe Mr. De Silva can attend my.
That would be fun. Anything else, Adam? No other new business? I just, we're just finishing up on our year. I'd like to thank the planning committee and as well as our staff for a great year. Wishing everyone a happy new year and a Merry Christmas, and hopefully a great 2024 for us in the committee and the town. So with that, I will move to our final motion. I have a motion by Nettie McEwen, seconded by Les Goldhawk, that the Committee of Adjustments meeting be adjourned. The next meeting will be scheduled for January 9th, 2024 at 5:15 PM. All those in favor?